You want more on the Avs? You got it.
Honestly, does it really matter right now?
That's the problem, right?
No, just about anybody can get in front of a microphone and talk about hockey. How on earth do you get involved in something like this?
It was kind of a fluke.
It's funny that this podcast is going off the rails so quickly.
This is From the Cheap Seats, an Avalanche fan podcast from 9 News. Seated in the conference room, here are your hosts, Steve Stager and Jeff Sawtell.
Still not the conference room, but a whole heck of a lot closer than it
So
was
much
before.
closer.
Yeah. Welcome to From the Cheap Seats. Steve Stager, Jeff Sawtell here with you on a Friday night after the holiday break. Good to be here with you, although it was fun to have a little bit of time off.
Yeah, but after a while, you're just sick of family and ready to
Talk
back
about
and do other things.
Ready to talk about hockey?
Exactly.
Is that how that works? Coming to you on the day after an Avalanche victory against the St. Louis Blues.
Beautiful thing.
We will talk more about that coming up. We've been off the air for a while, and I hope you don't mind. There are some things that I would like to get off my chest. The number one thing, and probably the only thing that I'm going to get off my chest.
But it will take a while.
Can we talk about, and perhaps there's someone who listens to this podcast who works for Pepsi Center and can tell me why concession stands are closed during sold-out games. Been to 2 of them lately. Went to the New Year's Eve game, and then I went to the St. Louis Blues game. Both sellouts, according to Alan Roach, who made the announcement in the stadium. Both sellouts, and both times the concession stand behind 326, which I actually like better than the other concession stand that's adjacent to it, because all they do is sell fries at that concession stand. The one that's near us is closed every single time. It was open at the beginning of the season. That's how I know the things in there are fantastic. But for some reason, and I don't know, is it the laws of hospitality? Is there some unwritten law in hospitality somewhere where you have a sellout crowd and you close concession stands? Have you noticed that?
I have. And for the longest time, I sort of figured, because this would happen occasionally last year too, and I figured there was some formula that went into what they expected attendance to be and, not wanting to overstaff and have to pay all these extra employees. But you look at some of these games, like especially New Year's Eve, like how is that not going to be a sellout game?
You know it's a sellout.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
I
that makes
overmodulated
no
there.
sense.
It's been a while since I've been, I didn't mean to overmodulate.
That's how you can
folks.
tell you mean it.
Yes, right? Just yell as loud as you possibly can into the microphone.
That's how things work now.
You know it's a sellout. You have to know it's close to a sellout.
Yeah.
When the only tickets available are the tickets that are available for resale, you know that it's a sellout.
How is it not fully staffed and open?
Another mystery that I will never understand is when you open certain entrances. So that if you're walking toward the statues at Pepsi Center and you're walking into the main entrance, if you turn off to the left, there's a fantastic little side entrance with a set of stairs and it's not for, if you're not in great shape, it's not the best place to go. I will tell you that because every single time I get to the top of it, I am huffing oxygen like crazy because I'm not used to the altitude, apparently.
We're just earning our beer.
Yeah, earn your beer. Yes, you burn enough calories walking up those stairs to get to the top. But even on sellout nights, sometimes that's not open, and sometimes it is. So, I don't understand. Is it like selective staffing?
I have no idea.
I don't get. And let me just get one more thing off my chest about concession stands. The thing, some of them have the ropes
To guide the line?
that guide the line, which means that you can actually make it through the concourse when you're upstairs. I don't know how all you people in the luxury section do it. The 100 level and the 200 level, they just bring food to you. I've been there. It's a magical experience.
Whether you ask for it or not, they just show up with trays of
But
food.
up on the 300 level, where my nose is legitimately bleeding as I've climbed the stairs and summited to the top of the 300 level, sometimes they don't put the little line guides in, and the next thing you know, you get the line that's basically blocking the entrance to the other side of the concourse. Like if you're just walking down the hallway, All of a sudden, you got to walk through a line of people. You got to do the, excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I walk in front of you?
Weave
Excuse me,
through.
please. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
Which is annoying for a person walking through. It's annoying for the person in the line.
Is it there like a uniform standard? There's no uniform standard because some places have the little line carousels and other places don't. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I feel like we're waiting to see how long it took for a respectable podcast to bring it up, which means they're still waiting.
Which means that this show will be canceled soon enough because they're going to call somebody in charge. I just don't understand. Guide me. Maybe there is some sort of Denver fire code that says that you need to block the hallway every now and then and you can't keep people captive in a... But even then, even when they set up the little line carousels, then there's nowhere to get out. Once you order your food, then you got to walk back through people to get out of the line carousels. These are things that probably should be reserved for my comment card at the end of the season.
You have strong feelings about these things.
But if you've been to a game, and I assume a lot of our listeners have been to games at Pepsi Center recently.
Probably.
And maybe, like I said, maybe in the luxury zones, maybe they magically don't close things. But up where we pay next to nothing to sit there and get a headache because we're so high up and trying to watch the game, things close all the time. I don't understand. Do they not like pay their rent? Like what's going on? Did they get evicted? Because the last time I went to the concession stand right behind 326, when it was open, one of the rare times there was a unicorn standing in the line. The one time that it was open, they had a buffalo pastrami Reuben that was pretty spectacular and an actual meal, right? So then the only one that's open is the like fry section. Poco is what they call it because they all have cute Metro Denver names, which is kind of cool. But you go to Poco, and it's fries that are loaded with bison pastrami, but you can't eat that as a meal. It's January, people. We're trying to lose a little bit of weight. We're trying to be better about what we eat. You can't eat fries with garlic butter all over them.
I mean, I feel like the bison Reuben is probably not exactly a health food either, but
it's true. I just have been dying to get that off my, because that is the one thing.
It has come up quite a few times when we're at games.
The one thing that makes absolutely no sense to me. And maybe I didn't make it clear enough on my comment card last time because they listened to a lot of the stuff I said because I assume other people said the same thing. Because you want to know, at the end of last year, I could go on a rant about food for a long time, partially because I come right over to Pepsi Center right after I leave Channel 9, where I've been working and slaving all day, and all I want is a decent meal, and my place isn't open. But like I was saying, at the end of the season last year, they sent out a comment card, and they said, what would you like to change? I mentioned the fact that it's pretty dumb that you have to use those little ketchup and mustard packets, also not very eco-friendly, that you're opening a plastic packet to shoot a teaspoon worth of mustard onto your hot dog when you could be economical with the pumps like they do at the Rockies game and anywhere else, and they changed that. I complained about the beer. In a city that is known for its craft beer,
We had nothing.
There was nothing. All I could get was a shock top. A shock top in Denver. It wasn't even a Coors Banquet. But they fixed that, right? They fixed that. That was fine. That was sorted out through the comment card process. All I know is that for some reason, for some unknown reason, and I mentioned this before, they aren't open. So once again, if you know the answer to that, cheapseats@9news.com or @9cheapseats is how you get in touch with us.
You might just save Steve from an aneurysm if you can give him an answer to these questions.
I just want answers to life's little questions, the things that I don't understand. Like, for instance, and I think I figured this one out, but why it costs more to park in the Pepsi Center parking lot when you're using cash over a credit card. Because I think that is the only place where you pay more money to use cash than you do a credit card.
Yeah, I've always seen it the other way.
It's $5 more if you're using cash. I think it's 25 or 20. The last time I parked there. I don't park there anymore because it's way too much money to park. And you're stuck in the freaking parking lot all night.
For half an hour getting out. You say you might have figured that one out? Because I'm legitimately curious on that one.
So I think that's because they don't want all those people out in the parking lot with a wad of cash in their pocket.
See, that does make sense.
Yeah.
disincentivize people from paying in cash. They're carrying less.
But
Well,
and they must be willing to eat the credit card processing fees for that.
yeah.
But I don't know. He's making plenty of money on that anyway. That whole proposition to park in a parking lot for 41 games a year where it costs $20. Where I think if you're a season ticket holder, you get a break of like $2 or something like that.
Still looking like $800
Once
a
again,
year just for parking.
Stan's sitting at home listening to this podcast and just fuming, and he says, "You know what, Steve?
I'm
Guess
going to
what?
close even more of those.
I'm going to withhold altitude even longer from Comcast just because you're so upset about this."
It's your
Anyway,
fault.
I told you I had a rant. in
Yes,
me.
you did. I did not give you enough credit for that.
Call me Steve O. Rantanen right now.
Ah,
Yeah, we need that.
I'm gonna leave on
There's
that
no
pun.
rim. There's no rim shot in here for me to play on that. You know, you said the solution to the parking. I think I might have found a solution to the parking. And so there are these things at Pepsi Center that I feel like I shouldn't reveal in a public place. It's kind of like, you know, whenever I go on TV and talk about DIA and I talk about bridge security, I usually get like 10 emails from people saying, "Why are you telling people about bridge security? It's like the most convenient thing and it's my way to get around." But we've talked about like upstairs at Pepsi Center when you're walking out of the game and there's the 2 doors to the stairway. And if you were walking with the flow of traffic, the flow where people are going, they always go to the first door. They don't go to the second one. So if you go to the second one,
always go to the second
it's a
door.
wide open door.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Or if you're boarding the light rail outside of Pepsi Center to return somewhere, everybody just gathers right. Basically, they walk through the fence and be like, "I'm here," instead of walking to the end of the platform where trains board and there's tons of room.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my one other secret about Pepsi Center. Take it or leave it. And we learned this from Megan Schamberg, who we interviewed on the show last time. The secret park. The secret to parking. So I have been parking for the last season and a half in a lot on Spear Boulevard, which was like $9 or something like that for a game. Much better than the $20 or $25, depending on the way that you like to run a tender. I parked near the Auraria campus police station, which is like 7th, basically.
Yeah.
7th runs back behind the Auraria campus. The police station's back there. There's an entire street of 5-hour meters where you pay $1 an hour. The last 2 Avalanche games I've gone to, I've paid $3 for park.
It's a bit of a
$3.
discount.
Compared to, that's a third of what I was paying
At
the
the
city
cheap
of
lot.
Denver at the cheap lot.
Yeah.
Which is going to the city of Denver. This at least is still going to the city of Denver, but it's like $3. It's a secret.
See, this is why they can't staff the concession stands. They're losing all this money because we're taking their parking revenue away.
That's it. Yeah. Stan is listening and going, "Well, guess what? I'll take Poco away from you now." Ha! What do you think of that, Stager? Anyway, just a couple of things. I feel like I need a good rant every now and then.
Great way to start the year.
I feel like if I get it out here, I'm not going to be ranting to Katie at home. Which
That's
I feel
what
like
she's hoping
I feel like she gets really annoyed when I do nothing but rant and go on and on about things. She was very amused with how happy I was about that parking trick for the longest time. I wanted to bring this up before we get to Joey, who's our guest here. We're gonna chat a little bit about the hockey side of things. It's been a rough couple of weeks for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
Got a little bit better last night. We'll talk to Joey about that in just a little bit. You know, I had mentioned that I sometimes think that the old school style of hockey, where you could get in the locker room and say whatever you wanted, has been thrown out the window. But I don't know if any of you who follow hockey, if you follow beyond the Colorado Avalanche and you follow some other teams, saw what happened this week to John Tortorella, who's the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let me set up the scene for you here. Blue Jackets are playing the Blackhawks. Game is in overtime. 19.2 seconds left in the game. One of the refs blows the whistle. The clock continues to run after the whistle's blown. It runs down a second and a tenth. So it goes from 19.2 to 18.1. Tortorella sends his captain over to the ref Ref says, nah, we're not going to change it.
Going to leave the time run off.
No talking to Toronto. No talking to anyone else.
And replays are very clear.
Yes.
That the clock kept running.
Flash forward 18.1 seconds. The Columbus Blue Jackets score on the last second, or in the last second of the game. And after review, it shows that the puck crosses the line after time had expired. But let's just be generous. Likely within 1.1 second of when time had expired, right?
Yeah.
But they they call off the goal. No good, because
they let the time run off.
Tortorella, notably frustrated by this, then sees the Blue Jackets go into the shootout. His goalie get injured during the shootout, and they lose the shootout. So after the game, in a move that isn't necessarily, I think, done enough in today's NHL, John Tortorella gets behind the microphone, and this audio, courtesy of Fox Sports Ohio, I believe is where it's from. Let me play it for you right now.
The whistle is blown at 19.2 on the clock. For some reason, the clock has run down a second and a tenth to 18.1. For whatever reason, I have no idea.
That's a bleep, by the way.
So instead of resetting the clock, we have them tell our captain we're not going to do it. Toronto doesn't step in. Refs don't do their freaking job. And now we lose the game, and we lose our goalie. So the chain of events, if it was done right, we don't lose our goalie, we win the hockey game. So all this technology,
another bleep.
Right? The technology and getting things right, the stubbornness tonight by the officials and by the league and Toronto, however it's supposed to work, screws us. It's ridiculous. I'm not taking it.
He says, I'm not going to take any bleep questions. So can you imagine if John Tortorella went to sit in 326 and that concession stand was closed, what he would sound like? But so Tortorella does that. What does the league do? Next day, $20,000 fine with a conditional fine of $25,000 if he does anything like that within a year.
Jeez. I mean, like the league loves just to clamp down. They don't want anyone speaking out against the league. They want it to look like everyone's nice, happy family on the same page. I mean, a coach has to be allowed, though, to defend their team. I mean, this wasn't just, missed a call, went on a power play, no one scored, no harm, no foul. This cost them the game, cost them their goalie for who knows how long. Like, this is a big deal. That was a blatant mistake by the officiating crew, not just on the first call, but just the refusal to review it and fix it. That's what the review is there for. That's what Toronto has that direct connection for. He's absolutely right to be pissed off.
I don't think you should be fined if you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes, he's rough, and yes, he's frustrated. He has a right to be frustrated. Yeah. And I don't understand why, if it's such a big deal and we don't want to upset the referees, why you don't let them speak. Because I know this is part of this rule, is because the refs can't say anything. The league has to speak for them, and that's why they end up finding people the way that they do. But I don't understand what's wrong with a little transparency in hockey.
Either let the refs speak for themselves, or have someone on the NHL staff who can speak on their behalf and respond to something like that. Say, hey, here's why we did it that way.
You know what? They did have someone from the PR team speak, but they said, like, his comments were out of line. And
address the issue.
And the league does that. The league does that through calls that they make when they overturn goals. You'll usually see a tweet from the NHL's PR team explaining the reason why a play was overturned,
which is
or
good.
Why it wasn't.
Yeah.
But why don't you come out and say, yeah, we messed this one up?
Like, refs are human. They're going to make mistakes. That's fine. By and large, we love to boo them at games and complain whenever there's a call. For the most part, they do a good job. I mean, even the penalties that we boo, a lot of times we go back and rewatch replay. It's like, you know what?
I can think a lot of times in the last 6 months where the refs did not do a good
absolutely.
job.
but it makes it so hard to take any like call they make seriously when they don't. There's no accountability for it. Like there's not even an admission that there was a mistake. It's like just own up to it, and then it makes the stuff that you get right seem more like you got it right.
You would hope that at some point someone would figure that out and not assess a $20,000. Like, what message does this say? What message does it send to the rest of the league? Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
That's what that message sends. And you know what? Things don't get called. Like, you couldn't say, hey, refs, Gabe's skate was not on the line. We disagree with you on that call. Or was on the line. We disagree with you on that call. That ended up costing potentially a trip to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Like, Bednar can't get in front of a microphone and say that because otherwise he's going to end up like John Tortorella.
Yeah.
Or Tortorella. Anyway,
That's ridiculous.
I thought that was a fascinating stretch, especially the dollar amount, the $20,000 and $25,000 if he screws up again before December 29th of next year.
And it's one of those things. He makes enough money. Part of me wants to see him go out and just do it to make a point.
Yeah.
It's like he can afford it. It would kill
us. As many times as possible. We'd love it. All right, we're going to talk to Joey, who's an Avs fan, next.
Coloradans are passionate about Colorado, and at 9 News, we love to hear all about it. Call, email, or find us on social media. 9 News listens.
So we talked about, in the beginning of this podcast, trying to get more fans on. And lately we've had a lot of people, like different guests who are, doctors, things like that. Joey Suishi is a fan that I saw on Twitter, and I got your last name right?
Yes, you did.
I did. Because I was just telling you guys before, I see your name on Twitter all the time, and I typically, for some reason, pronounce it completely differently in my head.
Most people do. I mean, people who have known me for 30 years still butcher it.
Really?
Yeah. I was a kid in school, in sports. Coach would be going down the line, Smith, Joey.
So, Joey, you are all over Twitter, and you used to do a bit of Avs blogging, but I know that's kind of slowed down since you've had a massive change in your life.
Yeah, I blogged a little bit, a few different sites. I had my own, did a little bit of work on Bleacher Report, but I haven't really done much in the last 6 years since my daughter was born. She'll be 6 next week.
Congratulations.
So thank you so much.
Much delayed congratulations.
Well, thank you. She's actually she's starting to play hockey next week. So Monday is her first hockey lesson, I guess, and then Tuesday is her 6th birthday.
Great. Where's she going to play?
Family Sports, where the Avs practice.
Very nice. That's where I played until I messed myself up.
And actually, cool story about her. So the first time she was ever on the ice was probably about 3 years ago. It was a season ticket event at Pepsi Center where you could just skate around. She was too little for the skates, so I just carried her on the Pepsi Center ice, but that was the first time she'd ever been on an ice rink. And the first time she'd ever played hockey was a couple months ago. The season ticket holder skate, they provided all the gear and everything like that. And she thinks she's McKinnon. So she had never skated before, but she picked it up really fast. And by the end, she was able to skate from one end of the ice to the other. So we signed her up for hockey. And then I told her they're going to teach her how to skate. She goes, I already know how to skate. I skated all the way down without falling down.
She's like, yeah, I've already scored on Jordan or on Bennington a couple of times. It's been good for her. That's awesome. That has to be a proud parent moment, right?
Oh yeah, living vicariously through her.
Yeah, right. Well, you played, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I played roller in college up at CSU in Fort Collins, and then for the last 15 years or so, just kind of beer leagues around town.
Yeah. You said RMHL,
RMHL,
right?
yeah, mostly Ice Ranch, a few South Suburban games.
And you're a goalie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you get free hockey.
I do, yeah. And actually, last month November, I got $20 cash to play in one game. It was during that blizzard. I wasn't going to go out because it was a late game, and I usually don't play the late games unless it's my team and I have to. But it was like a 10:30 game, and then some dude on Facebook was like, hey, I'll pay you $20 to come out. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, it's worth it unless I crash my car or something. So I went out, played. It was a fun game. And then the very next week, someone, needed a goalie. And then at first I wasn't going to do it because I was actually subbing in a different game like 2 hours before. And I was like, I don't want to do that because then I'll just be stuck at the rink for an hour and a half, like with nothing to do. And so I replied to him and said just that on Facebook. And he was like, well, I understand. I was like, oh, but I have these sweet tickets for the Avs game next week. They're yours if you do it. I'm like, why didn't you lead with that?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Not $20. $20 will buy you food at that game that he could have told you
Right,
about.
and it was a Sunday, so between games, I just got to go up to the restaurant and watch football.
That's awesome. That's great. I love that. So tell me how you got involved being a fan.
So my 8th grade class, this was 1995, right when the team moved here from Quebec. I went to a small middle school. It's called Rick Center. It's still around. It's on campus of the University of Denver. My 8th grade class got to have a lunch with the Avalanche. And at that time, I didn't really know hockey. I grew up with, football. The Rockies came around when I was 10, Nuggets. I didn't know hockey too well. I'd seen the Mighty Ducks movies. If anything, before the Avs came here, I was a Kings fan because my dad's from L.A., and in 93, they got Gretzky. So,
It was a fun time to watch them.
Yeah, it's really the only player I knew.
Yeah.
But then, we got a team, and I got to meet all the players. This was before the season started, so it was before Patrick Waugh, but I met Joe Sakic, Adam Foote, Peter Forsberg, Adam Deadmarsh, Mark Crawford. The 2 goalies at the time were Stéphane Fissé, Jocelyn Thibault. So I met that whole team and then just kind of fell in love. And, obviously it didn't hurt that they went on to win the Stanley Cup that year, got Patrick Waugh in December. When I learned who he was, one of my buddies was like, no, yeah, we're a pretty good team, but we just got the best goalie in the NHL. So then, started to follow them a little bit closer. And then I was able to go to a few games throughout the season. And I don't know how my parents hooked it up, but I went to some of the playoff games, including one of the Stanley Cup final games. So I went to a game when I was 13 in 96, and then I went to one of the games in 2001 in the Stanley Cup final against the Devils.
Wow. How do you even hook up a playoff game?
Was
that maybe they just liked you as a son and they were like, we're gonna get you tickets?
Yeah, and my dad's the kind of person, he knows people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, he's one of those guys.
In like a good way.
Oh no, the good people. Okay. Yeah, he's not like in the mob or anything.
No.
Okay.
He just knows a lot of people around town, like Big Head Todd and the Monsters.
Yeah.
He knows them, and then Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle
went to East High School,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My dad used to work with his dad.
Oh,
so
cool.
my dad's played golf with him a couple times.
Awesome.
I'm like, cool. My dad's golfing buddies with War Machine.
So you're 13 years old and you're at a Stanley Cup game. Can you describe that feeling? What it's like? I wasn't in that building. In fact, your team was playing my team in that year.
Florida?
No, I was a
The round before.
I was a Red Wings fan.
Oh, okay.
I still am. I shouldn't say was. It's where I grew up. It's my team initially, but I'm much more of a fan of this team right now. But there's a whole episode about that. Episode 3. In case you're wondering, you can go back in the timeline and listen to episode 3 about my transition. What's it like to be in that building? Because I remember vividly the scenes on TV of the pom-poms all like moving in unison, and this place just being like a madhouse at McNichols Arena.
Yeah, I mean, it was super loud. I remember that. I'd probably remember it better than a lot of the adults at the time because I wasn't drinking beer, obviously, and just it was the biggest sports event that I was at in my life. Actually, I was at the first game at Mile High Stadium when the Rockies' first game. So that, I guess, that was bigger in terms of crowd. So yeah, I guess I've been to a couple pretty historic Colorado sporting events.
That's pretty cool. Love that. And then you just become a fan and you struggle and you win with the team, and it's just been a fun ride, I imagine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you always been this diehard?
Yeah, I stuck with the team through through the dark years. There have been a few of them here recently, but yeah, and I think we were spoiled in the late 90s and early 2000s because, we won the division. You didn't even think about it. We're just going to win the division. And then after, Waugh retired, then stopped winning divisions, stopped making the playoffs. And then I think because of those bad years, now we're able to appreciate the team we have even more.
Did you notice a drop off in fans during that time?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I mean, that place. I remember when I was there in the awful season, the recent awful season, the 48-point season, and I just remember like I've never seen a hockey game with this few people in the stand. I mean, it just was there hit a point there where there were like the diehards, and then there weren't other folks in the stands, and now it seems like they're almost selling out every night.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, like it got to the point where when you're a season ticket holder and that 48-point season, it almost became like a chore. Like, oh, got to go to another Avs game. Yeah. But now it's like, I don't have tickets for tonight's game. I sold them. How do I get more tickets so I can go? Yeah, and I mean, it's still not the same as the 90s when the team was new, and it was hard to get tickets. It was like trying to get tickets for an Avs game, despite the fact that there are 41 home games a year. It was like trying to get tickets for a Broncos game, in the late 90s.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think about it now, because I think they still hold the NHL record for consecutive sellouts. I believe they do.
I think you're right.
And it went for years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 97 on or something like that, where they... I think it ended in like 2006 or something.
And I didn't get to an Avs game until 2004, I think.
Wow,
Year
really?
after.
Largely because of that.
Yeah.
That I was a diehard fan, but I was able to watch it at home. So in my mind, it wasn't worth shelling out the sort of money it would take to get in, just because of how hard it was. I mean, you had to overpay.
Yeah, you're big on hockey Twitter. I noticed you a lot. Then, in fact, that's part of the reason why I asked you to come in, just because I constantly see you tweeting. I follow the Go Avs Go hashtag. How big is hockey Twitter? I've as a recent entrant into it, I'm always curious about that. Are those most of the people you see at the games? Or are they outsiders? Like, who have you met there in that world?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. So I've been active on Twitter for several years now, and it's cool, like, meeting some of the people, like eventually putting, faces to Twitter handles, which I've done, several times throughout the years. I got to play in, games at Pepsi Center because, my Twitter friend, asked me, he's like, hey, we're getting a game together at Pepsi Center. Do you want to play? And, yeah, and it's a cool little community. I know, Twitter overall kind of has a bad reputation, but my Twitter feed is like 90% Avs. So, I ignore all the bad stuff.
It's kind of wonderful in the giant cesspool that is Twitter to find this little oasis of people who are, I mean, and there are arguments, but they're like friendly arguments.
Right.
They're not the people that we deal with on a daily basis that are threatening us and stuff. Like that.
I mean, like, social media is what you make it. Facebook too. It was designed to like keep in touch with friends, so you can have a Facebook friend of someone who lives several states away who you may not be able to see a lot, but you can keep in touch with, him or her. And that's, I think, what Facebook is, was meant for until, all the other kind of crap came in. And it's still there. You just have to,
You have to figure it out.
Right.
You have to know how to navigate it, right? Well, I figured we could talk a little hockey since you're here and you're wearing a McCarr jersey. And we're taping this on a Friday, by the way. Friday after the St. Louis Blues game, which was a wonderful time to be an Avs fan at Pepsi Center, surrounded by a bunch of Blues fans.
Yeah, there were a lot of Blues fans. So there are a lot of Minnesota fans whenever they come here. There's still a lot of Detroit fans because I'm guessing you're from Detroit.
I am, yes.
A lot of people.
We move, yeah.
Same with the Kings, even though they're not really a rival of ours, just a lot of L.A. transplants. Both of my parents are from L.A.
I put Chicago in that category,
Chicago's definitely in there, too. But Chicago fans aren't as annoying because they're not as good anymore.
That's interesting.
Blues fans are a lot more annoying now because they have, that air about them. Oh, we just won the Stanley Cup, and,
See, I had a run, the most run-ins I've had with Blackhawks fans.
Oh, really?
Which, by the way, that's my New Year's resolution because Katie just gets so frustrated every single time I start talking to a guy who's trying to get attention in our section or something like that.
Just ignore him.
We have a mental joust for a few minutes as we jar back and forth. But I have to admit, the behavior I saw last night, yeah, you're right on point because there was at one point they're winning 7-3. and a guy walked out, and as he was walking out, he was like fake kissing the Stanley Cup as he was walking down to the bottom of the section to walk out, and he's like holding up his hat with the Stanley Cup logo on it and things like that. And I just very kindly said to him, I said, "It's great you guys got one. They got two. So, you know, like maybe you'll have two. We don't know. Could be maybe."
And the scoreboard's 7-3 right
And
now.
the scoreboard's 7-3. So here's the thing. When you and I have been to, 5 games now following this team in other buildings, and I have never once felt the need to be like, hey, guys, look at me. I'm here and my team rocks and you suck. Inside another building.
You did get into it a little bit with the guy in Chicago, but
I didn't
didn't loudly say anything. He just overheard you.
I didn't get into it. All I said was that one goal seemed an appropriate slogan for the Chicago Blackhawks when they only score one goal. And the guy turns around and says, "Well, it worked pretty well for us 3 of the last 10 years." And I was like, first I said, "I didn't mean to piss you off, sir."
Which I think he thought you were joking when he said he was sort of glaring at you.
Yeah, he was. There was a good solid stare. But other than that, I mean, when we went to Canada, we didn't. You know, people are actually really nice. And
I mean, the stereotype of Canadians, but yeah, they were super friendly.
I had a nice chat with a Minnesota Wild fan in the building the other day. We were jarring a little bit during the game, but then afterwards, you know, I said like, "Are you here on a trip?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, where else are you going?" Like, it's nice being nice, but there are some of them who could just be complete a-holes.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that?
Sure. We'll find out.
Do we bleep it out?
This might be our last episode.
Yeah, right. Steve and Jeff no longer work at 9 News.
I like having like the friendly rivalries. I have, a good buddy at work who's a Minnesota Wild fan. I have friends who are Blues fans, and I have a lot of Red Wings fans. Actually, a good buddy of mine, his dad used to play for the Red Wings.
Who?
In the Dennis Hextall.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I grew up with his sons because they have a timeshare in Vail in December. I saw him for about a day last week because we were only up there for a couple days. But yeah, I grew up with his kids.
Yeah, is that Ron Hextall related? To?
Yeah, Ron Hextall is my friend's cousin, Dennis's nephew.
Oh, very cool. Wow, what a cool hockey connection.
Yeah, and yeah, Dennis Hextall, former Red Wing, comes to Colorado every year to go skiing.
Yeah, as most Detroiters do, as most of the people. But they're having a miserable year in Detroit this year.
We went through our tough times.
Yeah.
Every team's going to go through it. Like when Crosby and Malkin retire, Pittsburgh's going to be in the rebuild again.
Well,
Blackhawks are there right now.
Here's what I'll say: is if there's a chance that Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing to the level that Joe Sakic knows what he's doing, can you imagine those two going head to head? Building teams that are really, really good to play each other. I think that could be really
that would
exciting.
be awesome.
And that would reignite. I mean, they only play each other twice a year, but you have the possibility of seeing those two teams in the Stanley Cup Finals.
In 5 years, that shot on TV of the two of them shaking hands before a finals game
would be kicked. But, I'm cleaning myself up now, Jeff, in case you're wondering. Let's talk hockey, because up until that game last night against the St. Louis Blues, where the Colorado Avalanche won 7-3. 7-3. I almost put an extra goal in there.
You don't need to do that.
They were on one of those slumps that felt a lot like the slump that we saw last season at the midway mark.
Yeah.
And the fear was, I had an instant fear that we maybe jinxed them by going on these trips, because that seemed to happen last year when we went on.
They were in the middle of the slump when we did the trip.
Yes, they were. The
we just
slump had
prolonged
started.
it.
Yes.
So maybe stay home.
Yeah.
Go on like preseason when it doesn't matter.
I'm still figuring out what the lucky jersey for road trips is.
This is exactly what the fiance was saying to me at some point. And then I said, "See that new Gabe Landeskog jersey I just bought you? I guess you can't wear that anymore, because they've lost 3 times with you wearing that jersey." And then she changed her tune on that. But I am very hesitant, because I listened to a lot of radio last night. I watched a lot of Twitter today, and there are a lot of people who seem to be in the camp of like, well, they beat the Blues, now onward to the Stanley Cup. Like, after experiencing what we just experienced for 6 straight games, where it seemed like, except for a couple of
they had that good game in Vegas. I think it was
Vegas
like
game was good.
7-3 in Vegas. Yeah.
The Belmar game where he got 2 goals. Yeah.
So when they score a touchdown and the extra point, they're gonna win.
They're gonna win.
I feel like most teams have a pretty good record.
I was going to say they went for 2 against Nashville a few months ago, and that worked really well.
I think that was 9.
Yeah. Wasn't it 9? Yeah. They got the 2-point conversion.
Missed the extra point, but then got a field goal.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. That is 9. Duh. See, this is why I can't follow football or math. But I'm very hesitant to say everything's fixed. Are you hesitant to say everything's fixed?
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at their record over the last 10, 3 wins out of 10?
Yeah.
Which, that's not what you want. It's kind of ironic because in November, all the injuries happened. Landeskog was out for a long time. Rantanen was out for a long time. We lost Makar for 8-9 games.
Yep. And then Grubauer.
Yeah, Grubauer and Francouz. And despite the injuries, they seem to do all right. And then now Makar's back. Everyone is pretty much Johnson's back. Everyone is pretty much healthy except for Colin Wilson, but he's not a core player like those guys. And then they just start losing. So
it makes you wonder if just maybe the chemistry wasn't working for a little while. Like maybe there's a little rust.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Rantanen last night had his best game since he's been back, and
I would argue he's still not 100% too.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're gone, when you miss that many games, because Rantanen and Landeskog each missed 16, that's a lot of games. Your timing is going to be off when you come back, and those were both lower body injuries too, so conditioning could be a factor because you can't skate hard that whole time. But yeah, and I think a lot of it too is kind of the secondary players who were healthy the whole time. When the superstars are out, like, all right, well, I got to step up. It's my time to shine. But then when the superstars are all back, then people are like, oh well, McKinnon's going to do his thing, and get 5 points a night, and then Rantanen and Landeskog are back, so they don't necessarily do as much, and no one thinks that, but it just kind of
translates,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why they played better with those injuries, because everyone else, when you lose your captain, when you lose an all-star in Rantanen, who with healthy, he could be a top 5 scorer in the league. You lose a guy like that, and everyone's like, all right, well, I need to step up. You lose Makar, the best defenseman in the league, I'm going to say.
Ooh, bold move. He's wearing a Makar jersey, by the way.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We aren't shooting video anymore of these podcasts.
Guess what I had for dinner tonight? I had a Makar salad. I had a kale salad before I came here tonight.
I was told by Tom Green entering, or as he was exiting the building tonight, that Gabe Landeskog's Instagram story has video of Cale Makar eating kale.
I was eating my kale salad. I finished it, and then I saw that Instagram.
You watched the Instagram story.
So I didn't eat my salad. I had already planned on that before I saw the Instagram story.
Yeah. Well, he's back and had a goal last night from the point.
Yeah. And last night was definitely his best game.
Yeah, he had one miscue that led to a goal.
Yeah, but I mean, third goal when we have 7.
Absolutely. And I think it was interesting to hear Bednar in the post game last night, because he said something like, Cale Makar, it'll be interesting to see what happens when he becomes a man. I was like, wow, what a bold thing for a coach to say. But yeah, once he, conditions himself, I guess, and gets himself to a level where he's not, 21 anymore? Is he 21?
He just turned 21.
Yeah. So once he's 24, I think he'll be an incredible part of this team.
Well, yeah, because I mean, he's super fast, and one thing that's underrated about his game is his physical nature. He's not afraid to hit. I didn't follow him too closely last year when he was at UMass, but I think he threw his body around there. He still does it at the NHL level, despite the fact that everyone's bigger. So you give him another year or two, put a little bit more muscle on, and he could be throwing those big hits. I don't know if he's going to necessarily be, Rob Blake out there, but he can be that defenseman who does everything, because he's already reliable, despite the fact that he's a rookie. He's reliable in the defensive zone. Last night he did have that turnover.
Yeah,
he's a rookie. It's going to happen.
Sure.
But you already trust him more than, a lot of other guys.
He can pinch, and then he can get back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If he pinches and turns the puck over, all of a sudden, it's an odd man rush going the other way. And next thing you know, he's back.
Yeah.
He's on the blue line. He's beat out the odd man rush. He's that quick. He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
The other one who I thought had a great game last night and maybe is starting to get some confidence back is Samuel Girard.
Yeah.
I think Samuel Girard has had a really rough stint, and I don't know if it's just a confidence problem with McCarr there. Like, he was kind of the McCarr before McCarr was on this team, and I don't know if it's just like he just hasn't looked like the Sammy we saw the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, he had a great game last night, 4 assists. But, I mean, I totally agree because when, McCarr got hurt, Girard took his place on that first power play unit, and everyone was thinking, all right, well, this is Girard's time to find his game again, become that Girard that we all fell in love with, right after the Duchesne trade when he came in, and he was, the young up-and-coming stud defenseman. Now, McCarr is that for sure. Nothing against Girard, but yeah, he hasn't looked right all season, and I don't know. He's a smaller defenseman. I don't know if other teams, kind of started to figure that out because you put a body on him and he's 5'8", so, he can't use his size to get out of situations like that. So he has to use his speed, and he was doing that much more effectively last night than he had been.
He was also kind of captaining a lot of plays and getting it into the zone, and I think that's something that had been lacking for him. It seemed like he had trouble through the neutral zone for a few, or at least the last few games I've seen.
And so much of hockey is mental. I mean, it might be that as simple as one good game and it just clicks again for him. I mean, the talent is there. He's played that well before. And maybe that's all it takes.
Same thing for Philip Grubauer. You got to hope that little victories like this, like the one we saw last night, will kind of build some confidence back in these goalies, because I think they both have kind of been in a rough spot. We've been off the air for so long now. We haven't had a chance to talk about the Minnesota Wild game on national television, a quality NBC product, where Jared Bednar made a decision that I don't know I necessarily agree with. Then again, I don't get paid to coach a hockey team. But he started Pavel Francouz against the Minnesota Wild, and he put up a stinker in that Minnesota Wild game. And I don't know if that's the best place to put your backup, your really solid backup goalie, is start him on national TV.
Yeah,
against the division rival.
Francouz had won like his last several starts, so he was on a hot streak. So it feels like Bednar was just trying to go to the well one too many times. He had that hot hand on the craps table. Went in again and then lost it.
Yeah, I just think I don't know. Like on national TV, it puts some confidence back into your starting goaltender.
Do you think TV really matters? Do you think like the players really
I feel
care?
like it does to them. I feel like you got to think about it like. Think Canada's watching a game like that. You think like a lot of people all across the country are watching a game like that. I imagine that enters their head. Maybe not.
Well, and even if it's not so much that side of it, just the production is different. Like pregame, how the interviews are done, it doesn't feel normal the way you normally do your game.
Yeah.
And you've got your altitude crew that you're used to dealing with. You know what the routines are. And then NBC comes in. They have a different schedule, different people, and it just subtle differences just sort of might get under your skin a bit.
Maybe different time too, because those games always start at funky times. I don't know. It could, and maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I just thought that maybe that was like Francouz was playing just so well, and I just really hope that wasn't a confidence destroyer for him on a national TV broadcast. But who knows?
Yeah, and I mean Grubauer's had the last few starts now, so hopefully next time Francouz does get the net, he'll wanna bounce back for sure.
You're a goalie, you can speak to this.
I mean, I never played at that level, but yeah, I mean, you just said it. The biggest thing, and I think for goaltending in particular, 90% of it's mental. So I think goaltending, pitching in baseball, and quarterbacking in football. Like those are the three most mental positions in sports, because quarterback, through a pick, you have to go right back out there, and complete a pass. Pitching, you give up a home run, you're still in there. Same thing with, goaltending. You give up a bad goal and, you don't get pulled after one goal, but you have to come back out. And then, you don't score the goals that get the crowd back into the game, but you have to make that next big save so it doesn't explode on you.
Yeah. I also think it's a lot like an island too. We've talked to Justin Goldman, who talked a lot about how goaltending.
Yeah, he went to CSU with me.
You know, oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys know each other.
Yeah.
See, this community is so big yet so small. Like we keep running into people who know each other, and it's kind of cool. He was talking about how the mental part of goaltending and the fact that you're an island and like a goal is scored on you. You don't get to come back to the bench and you don't get a pat on the back from the coach and say, like, it's okay, get him next time. You're just out there. Same thing for a pitcher. And I would argue for a pitcher, it's even worse because if they're going to take you out of the game, you don't just skate to the bench. You got the coach coming out to you and grabbing the ball out of your hand and you're walking out.
Yeah, you never notice in baseball, like most pitchers don't have a complete game, but every single pitcher, like they could be winning 9-1 and then they just gave up that first run. When they walk to the mound, they always look so dejected.
Yeah. Wouldn't you? I would.
It's like, you had a good game.
You're in front of a crowd of people, and the coach literally comes and takes the ball out of your hand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that needs to change, but
Like
bet in hockey if the coach came out in a goal change, like took the goalie's stick out of his hand.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see that last night.
Right.
Berube comes out, takes Bennington's stick away. Bennington's done.
It was very satisfying to see Bennington out of that hockey game.
Oh yeah.
Although I wish him the best. I did not know that Justin Bieber had challenged him to a shootout. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Bieber thinks that he can score on Jordan Bennington. Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I'd go for. I don't like
I'm going.
Bennington.
I will support Bennington in the fact that Justin Bieber is Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would support most people.
It's like I didn't like Chris Pronger his entire career because I was always a Rob Blake fan because he was our guy and they were kind of the two.
I didn't like Chris
defensemen
Pronger either. Yep.
I started liking Chris Pronger in that celebrity game when there was that picture that went viral of him checking Justin Bieber into the glass. I was like, all right, now I like Chris Pronger.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if Bieber was watching McKinnon last night to see how it's done. That first goal was spectacular. Just splitting the D and getting out in front of him.
The trick is to spend your whole life playing.
Going shelf after, no one can handle the puck faster than Nathan McKinnon can. And just, he got like 3 or 4 stick handles before he went shelf on Bennington. That was just fun to watch.
Yeah.
Just, that guy is incredible.
Yeah, I'm gonna riot if he does. I mean, if he has a second half of the season like the first half, if he doesn't win the Hart this year, I'm gonna riot. But, I mean, like you would think at this point, he's got to be a lock for the Hart, Ted Lindsay. He's only 2 points back from the Art Ross. I think he's 2 points back from McDavid, 1 point behind Draisaitl. So he could catch them for the Art Ross. Makar, he's got to be.
He's got to be in the. Well, and there was concern about them rushing him back from his injury because of Calder, but I don't think. He looks fresh. He's young.
Yeah,
he heals up probably faster.
A coach isn't going to. A coach doesn't care about those individual awards. You care about winning hockey games. So you keep your star players out, even if it means sacrificing an award at the end. And all those players will tell you too. Like every single NHL player would rather win a Stanley Cup than a Hart or a Calder. Yeah. And another Makar only has 1 penalty, and it was that stupid penalty for accidentally shooting the puck over the glass.
I hate that call.
Delay a game.
So
I like it when other teams get it. I hate that call.
Yeah, I like it when we get a power play.
Yeah,
something
it's great.
Stupid like that.
Or too many men.
But you would have to think because Makar leads the Avs in ice time, so it's not like he's 5-10 minute player. He has 1 penalty halfway through the season, so he should win the Calder and Lady Byng.
Lady Byng, that's right. There's no plus minus trophy, is there?
There's like a Bud Light plus minus award.
They just call it plus minus.
Yeah.
It's just a can of Bud Light.
Ryan Graves will get a can of beer.
Where is he in that? I haven't actually seen an update.
I think he's still at the top. Cole is up there too, but Graves is number 1.
Ryan Graves is having a hell of a year.
Yeah,
I blame it 100% on the fact that he was on this podcast at the beginning of this before the season even started.
Just before,
he barely made it too because we were supposed to interview Logan O'Connor and he got cut like a day before.
Yeah.
And finally the Avs contacted me. They were like, "So we'll work on someone else for you." Which I would have loved to talk to Logan too, because he's a local kid. And,
oh yeah,
it would have been cool.
But yeah, Graves has been great. How awesome does that trade look now? Because Patrick Waugh loved Chris Begraw when he drafted him. He was his guy, and then he never panned out. And then he was kind of buried in the minors, and then it was just it was supposed to be just a minor league trade. And now Ryan Graves has made himself, he's paired with McCarr now. Yeah. So he's a top pairing defenseman.
Which definitely helps the plus minus rating.
Does that not speak to the genius that is Joe Sakic? I was sitting there during the Taylor Hall thing thinking, like, should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? Like, we were talking about doing it. I'm like, I don't know if it's a good idea messing with this lineup. And then I thought, you know what? What am I even worried about this for? Because if Joe Sakic makes this move, it's probably going to be a good decision.
I couldn't think of, like, I would like to have Taylor Hall because, why would you not want to add that scoring to your lineup? But I just couldn't think of a scenario during that whole time that made sense because we're not giving up, one of our core players now. And we're not giving up one of our top picks because, the rumors online were like, well, they want Byram. No, he's untouchable. He could be the next McCarr in a year or two, so we're not giving him up. And even, Connor Timmins and Alex Newhook, I'm not ready to give up on those guys yet because Taylor Hall is almost 30. So
plus you're going to have to bet the house on him later on if you wanted him to sign another year.
Right. So like he's in Arizona now. Does he sign a long-term contract in Arizona? He may not. But if we had him, we'd be looking at that same dilemma. Do you pay him? He's going to want Rantanen money, maybe even more. And then what do you do when McKinnon needs a new contract because he is the best bargain in the league right now? So next time
he's talking like he will still be the best bargain in the league.
Yeah, but you still gotta give him a hefty pay raise.
Yeah.
And McCarr could very well be one of, if not the highest paid defenseman in a couple years. Landeskog's going to need a new deal. Grubauer, have to pay a goalie. So you don't want to sacrifice any of those guys for a Taylor Hall who's going to be on the plus side of 30 soon because all those guys, especially McKinnon, Rantanen, are all very young. You want to lock those guys up, and you don't want to give up a top prospect like especially a Byram, but even like a Timmins or a Newhook who could become mainstays. You don't want to give up one of those guys for rental in Taylor Hall because we're not necessarily Rob Blake in 2001, where Rob Blake was that last piece to win that cup in 2001. We're not built right now to win the cup this year. If we win the cup this year, great, but we should be competitive for the next decade. McKinnon's only 24, McCarr's 21, Rantanen's 23, so those guys could be on the roster for the next decade. Landeskog's, he just turned 27. Yeah. So
yeah, you've got a huge future ahead of you. You don't want to jeopardize it. I think he's been playing the cap really well too. I think he knows that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we haven't talked about a lot since the playoffs last year is next year's expansion draft. And who do you save in an expansion draft? I mean, obviously you save McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, McCarr.
Yeah.
There was talk of saving, like, I forget what the...
We have to save Johnson because he has a no trade clause.
Yep.
So you would either have to ask him to waive it and be exposed, or you have to use a protection on Johnson. Protect one goalie, which, right now it's still Grubauer's team. So you would think that, Francouz has played great this first half. If he has a second half like the first half, he could be the easy pick for Seattle, just like how we lost Calvin Pickard
who
to
just
Vegas.
went to the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Yeah, for when Jimmy Howard just came back, right? But
Yeah.
when he was hurt, the two goalies were Bernier and Pickard.
Two Colorado Avalanche playing on the Detroit Red Wings. Just like, who's the crappy defenseman from last year? Nemeth.
Yeah. Which
I hate to say that because I'm sure the man is a lovely person, but legitimately I saw him turn so many pucks over during his time here, and he frustrated me every single time he was on the ice that I was like, oh, okay, I understand the trade deal.
Which is crazy because 3 former Avs are on the Detroit Red Wings. You would have never seen that 20 years ago.
No.
Because, those teams hated each other so much. Player doesn't play for both teams.
Yeah. I would hazard a guess that you probably wouldn't see any former Wings on this team.
Have we had any recently?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of. I don't think anyone in the lineup has played for the Detroit Red Wings.
Not on the current lineup. I feel like maybe a few years ago we had a former Red Wing.
Huh? I don't know.
I remember it was a big
Cheap
deal.
seats at 9news.com
Let us
if
know
you
what we're
disagree
forgetting.
with us, or at 9cheapseats on Twitter. Thank you for coming in and talking hockey, man. This has been fun.
Yeah,
How do people get in touch with you if they want to friend you on hockey Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter, it's Avalanche, AVRILANCHE. Oh, and before I forget, so I've been remembering at 10 o'clock every day because that's when it started, but go to NHL.com/vote, vote for Cale Makar. So the problem that I had when we were voting for McKinnon for captain is I wouldn't, because you can only vote once every 24 hours. So sometimes
you vote 10 times every 24
Yes,
hours.
vote 10 times every 24 hours, but sometimes I wouldn't remember till like 8 o'clock. And if I do it at 8 o'clock at night, and then you remember the next day, but it's not 8 o'clock yet, you're still locked out. So if you do it at 10 o'clock every morning, then you could just jump on it. And we only have another week. I think it goes through the 10th, so we have another week. There's not that many days left. We got to get Cale in the All-Star game with McKinnon. Last year was awesome when we had the three guys there. Unfortunately, McKinnon couldn't play because he was hurt. So it'll be awesome to see him, healthy this year, flying around in that 3-on-3 tournament, wearing the C. And then Makar is going to be a perfect fit for that All-Star format as well. His speed in the 3-on-3, these are Colorado fans. I don't need to convince you to vote for Makar.
But
just
do it.
Go online and do it. Yeah, we got and we've had a pretty good track record. We got McKinnon voted captain 2 years in a row now. We got Landeskog as a last man in last year, and now we got to get Cale in.
I think we could do it. I've been voting every day. Thank you for reminding me because I forgot to vote today. I will do that, and that is through Friday. The 10th,
Friday
right?
the 10th. Which I don't understand why he's not in already. Like they don't need 3 Blues in the All-Star game.
They have to because it's in St. Louis.
That is
number
true.
one, and they're the reigning Cup champions. There's this weird park in St. Louis that's set up for it that we checked out that no one was there.
Giant pucks out there.
Really
all alone.
creepy. It was really creepy. That city shuts down in a snowstorm.
Oh.
But that's a topic for another podcast. In fact,
Or a previous podcast.
Pretty much the whole last episode. Joey, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
At Avril Lanch on Twitter, just like Avril Lavigne, right?
Yes, I used to be a big Avril Lavigne fan back from like 2002 when she came out. I mean, I still like her, but I'm not as much of a fan.
Sure.
And Selena Gomez is my new.
He was a skater boy.
Which is another reason I hate Justin Bieber.
Okay. He was a skater boy, but then as far as being a fan of Avril Lavigne, he said, "See you later, boy." And that was the end of that. Did that work?
She plays hockey.
That's the lyric. She does?
Yeah, she's Canadian.
That's true. that's part of the residency exam. I need to get back into when she married Chad Kroger. That was enough for me.
Yeah,
that might have been the Creed connection or not Creed. Nickelback connection was enough for me. Anyway, we've droned on about Avril Lavigne for too long. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Colorado is a sports state. The 9 News app puts all of our great stories in one place. From the pros to the preps, you'll find it all. Plus the latest Broncos update from insider Mike Quist. The 9 News app. Download it today.
Back for our favorite segment of the show, the feedback segment. I got to start with something that's not written feedback, just because it happened to me last night at the St. Louis Blues game. Got to give a shout out. I caught his name and it was very quick. I think it was Chris, who came and chatted with me after the game. I will say this: many times I'm mistaken for Kyle Clark, so I just kind of assume that whenever anybody comes up to me, that I'm gonna have to explain away that, like, yeah, next is a great show. I'm on it too, yeah, but yeah, like Kyle's the guy without the beard. Chris said, "Steve Steger." He said, "Can I get a picture with you?" I said, "Yeah, sure, of course, man. This is awesome." He said, "I listen to your podcast every week." And Katie turned to me afterwards. She goes, "Did you just get feedback on the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got feedback on the podcast." So shout out to him. We're going to try to get him in on a show. First person to give us feedback in public. Might as well get him on a show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was the first piece of feedback post hockey road trip, which, by the way, the audio, I listened back to that show. The audio on that podcast sounded great.
I feel a little bad for how much we spent on these microphones.
Can you bleep that comment that you just made out so that Misty, our digital manager, doesn't hear that? And
I think I can manage
know that we spent all this money. We wouldn't be able to play this music had we not had this expensive board in front of us.
Now, it does sound noticeably better here, but I was expecting it, hollow, echoey, and can't make out. I was trying to make up like excuses we would give out for why we didn't do the show we promised to do on the road. And then,
hey, you know what? That was vacation for us. The fact that then again, this is like vacation for us doing this show.
Then I dropped the clip in the computer back at the Airbnb. I'm like, wow, that actually sounds good. Go figure.
I remember when you told me that, and I was like, nah, it's gonna sound like garbage. Don't like it was in the middle of, and the guy's like, do you want us to turn the music off? We're like, nah, it'll be fine. We weren't in a good frame of mind to tape a podcast, but it was fun. Just going through some feedback. Daisha, our producer who produces this show, says that Claire at the library enjoyed episode 17. Love Claire. And we're getting a few more little reviews on the podcast. We love when you rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. It continues to allow us to do this fun experiment. Illini Barney says, I heard about this podcast from Avs Hockey Podcast.
That's a legit
They're
one.
talking about it. I like it. Avs Hockey Podcast. I am now a 2-time winner, I believe, of the Avs Twitter Psychic, which I've been playing. I won last night.
You did.
I took an easy guess with Nate McKinnon.
I was about to say, yeah, that's almost cheating.
Now I'm catching up on past episodes. Illini Barney says, great fan podcast. And then D. Shreve 22, I'm guessing that's how you spell your name or pronounce your name, said, great way to keep up with the Avs all the way in Pennsylvania. They have great information, great guests, give stories, give us a part of hockey us as fans don't get to hear about. Great fan podcast. We want to keep this up.
Yeah.
So we want your ideas for who we should chat with, and that'll do it for our feedback. Oh my gosh, I timed that almost perfectly.
That was impressive.
The band just finished right behind me that's sitting. We also convinced them to buy a band for us.
So we've stopped doing the video side of things, and we've made up for that by having a full band in the room.
Yeah, we should get a quick word in on that. Jeff and I on the road realized how much time we spend setting up cameras for this show, which I guess in a way, Adrian Dater was right. That time that he said no one watches videos of podcasts, although we have quite a few people who watch videos of podcasts.
A couple hundred views on each episode on YouTube.
So if you're watching this video on YouTube
and wondering why you've been staring at a blank graphic the whole time.
Yeah. That is why. So just so you know.
Saves our sanity.
We're going to tape the interviews that are big. Next time we get Gabe Landeskog in here again, we'll tape that. But from now on, we'll try to keep it on the audio-only side.
A little simpler.
Just a bit. Schedule for the
Schedule.
team?
So we are taping this, as we've said numerous times, right after the Blues game on the 2nd. By the time this comes out, they will have played in New Jersey and at the Islanders.
Which is the other hockey trip you and I were thinking about doing.
We almost did, because we could have done 3 games without ever leaving like one place. And this will come out the morning of the Rangers game on the 7th.
A little homecoming for Ryan Graves, grave digger as we like to call him.
So the Devils have been unexpectedly awful this year.
Yeah.
But the rest of that, there's a lot of young talent out there on the East Coast. So.
Curse of PK Subban.
It does seem to follow.
Maybe that's what it is. And then they're back here at Pepsi Center on Friday night, right?
Friday against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
And then is that a home stretch?
That is a home stretch coming up. We've got Pittsburgh, Dallas on the next Tuesday, San Jose, St. Louis again, and then finish up the homestand on the 20th with the Red Wings on a Monday at 1:00 in the afternoon.
It is Martin Luther King Day. That, I think, is the reason why.
We don't get those days off.
We don't. Is that Martin Luther King Day? I think it is.
I think so.
It must be. Yeah, so that is, there you go. There's the schedule for the, hopefully they can squeeze some wins. There should be 2 relatively easy games on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Islanders who are playing pretty well. Maybe a chance to see Semyon Varlamov again.
That'll be fun.
That'd be a cool game.
Especially if we have one of his off days.
Yeah.
But no, there's definitely some winnable games in that stretch. There's some tough ones in there. And St. Louis obviously is always rough, but San Jose is hit or miss. But I mean,
you never know.
They can have a winning record on this.
Maybe they've gotten into St. Louis's head.
Here's hoping. I love getting into St. Louis's head.
It was fun the other night.
Oh, so great just listening to their fans be sad.
Oh my gosh. I will say that was almost like a home game. Hey, before we leave here, I almost forgot to. I wanted to wish some well wishes to former DU head coach Jim Montgomery.
Yes.
Former Dallas Stars head coach Jim Montgomery just announced the news today that he is struggling with some alcohol abuse. That was part of his firing with the Dallas Stars. He said that was a wake-up call. He's entering rehab. That is wonderful news from who all accounts is a wonderful man. Aaron Matus just speaks so highly of him because they spent a lot of time with that team. We hope Monty gets better. We hope he gets the help he needs, and we hope he inspires some other people to maybe get the help that they need moving forward. We're going to get out of here. This is 19, isn't it?
This
is episode 19. Next one's episode 20. We should probably do something important. See you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Steve Stager and Jeff Sautel, who have absolutely no business covering sports at all. They're just fans. You can tell them how wrong they are by tweeting at the show at 9cheapseats or email cheapseats@9news.com.